Hi, friends. Mike Hayes here, and this is the second session of our Holy Week series, which is what happened on Monday of the Holy Week. On Sunday was his triumphal entry, we call Palm Sunday, and on Monday, I call it turning the tables. After his triumphant entry on Sunday, Jesus entered the Temple Mount by climbing up the stairs and entered the temple, and there was a hush because the priesthood mafia, that's who I call those who ran the temple from the high priest right on down, they were conspiring for a way to kill Jesus already. Jesus goes right into the temple, into the den of the lion, and starts to, of all things, not try to appease them, not beg for forgiveness and acceptance, but he starts to kick over the money changers' tables. You never imagine Jesus in this like MMA mode, right? Just kicking over tables. Doves are flying, sheep and goats are running, coins are rolling, and people are screaming, and the angry are shouting, and Jesus just takes a rope to the whole thing and just whips it into shape. This is the point we want to make about the day that Jesus turned the tables. Let me ask you a question. Why would he do that? Why would Jesus be the aggressor against injustice and evil? Number one, he knew that it was time for the system to change. There was a new sheriff in town. Justice had come. God was going to recompense unrighteousness with their just reward. So Jesus aggressively started the fight. I want you to get that. Jesus wasn't cowered somewhere hoping they wouldn't catch him while he was doing his little miracles for poor people. No. Jesus went right to the temple, the world headquarters for Jews, the highest place that they looked to, and all of them trembled with fear that their animal sacrifice every year would be accepted. But it wasn't always accepted. And here's how corrupt the priesthood mafia was. If you were a little Israeli family and you raised the perfect lamb to bring for your sacrifice, you arrived there with all the hope in the world that you had examined it. You knew it was perfect. There were no black hairs among the white. There was no crippling of one of its legs. It wasn't the poorest of your flock. It was the finest of your flock. And the intention was that the priest would accept it, would sacrifice it on your behalf, and your sins would be pushed forward or forgiven for a year. But that's not what happened in the corrupt priesthood of Jesus' time. They would look at your lamb and they would say, sorry, this is not acceptable. It's not perfect. So they rejected your lamb, but they would say, we have one here in the back that we can sell you for a really good deal. And they would bring up another one and sell you that for a high price. You had to pay with all the money you had. As they led your little rejected lamb away, they sold you a one that was acceptable. But here's the criminal element in that. As they led yours away, they sold you one that had been someone else's that they rejected, that they kept in the back. And then as they led yours away, then later that day or the next day, they would sell that to someone else as a perfect lamb that had been approved. This was unjust. It was unholy. They were supposed to be the link between God and man, and the link was broken. It was rusted. It was corroded. It was shameful. And Jesus said, now is the time. Enough is enough. And that's why he went in there turning over the tables. I've heard people say that they read this story and they say, I don't think we should sell books and worship CDs in the lobby of the church. That's not the commerce Jesus was rejecting when he said, my Father's house should be called a house of prayer, and you have made it a den of thieves. Listen, I write books and I offer books in the lobby after I speak, but I'm not a thief. I sell the book as inexpensively as we can and be profitable enough to keep producing books. That's not thievery. That's commerce. And that's done correctly and justly. But these guys were robbing from the poor, and Jesus said, enough is enough. So he aggressively entered the temple and he kicked over the tables of the criminals and he picked the fight. Now, 3 days later, 4 days later, it's going to get him crucified. But I want you to remember this. He was the aggressor to make this happen. He wasn't running to hide from those who would kill him. He ran into their highest headquarters and dared them to do something about it. This stuff has to stop. It's over. That was the day the tables turned in more ways than one. Not just their folding tables where they made change, but the tables against the righteous by the unrighteous, they were turned. And by the time that week is over, justice will be found, and we're going to move next session here to the most important sermon teaching that Jesus ever gave, which is called the Olivet Discourse. It means his teaching on the Mount of Olives. That happens on Tuesday of Holy Week, which is our next session. Before we go, I want to pray for you. Father, I pray for my friends who are listening to this teaching today, and I pray that they will understand that you, Jesus, will aggressively fight for them against injustice and unrighteousness and wrongdoing. It doesn't matter what the enemy has conspired to do or said against my friends. Jesus, you have come to turn the tables, and you did that. And righteousness will rule, and justice will reign. Accept this word today. I believe it. Jesus is for you and not against you. And I'll be back with the next teaching on the Tuesday of Holy Week, which is the sermon in the Garden of Olives, which is what we call the Olivet Discourse. It was the garden on the Mount of Olives where the olive trees grew and where Jesus chose to sit his disciples down and teach them. I want you to tune in for this teaching because it's going to be different. There's going to be some different elements that I believe could be revelatory for you that you must see. So Tuesday's session is extremely important. I'd love for you to like and subscribe this if you're on YouTube, or give me a good review. And we want to spread the word. I was thrilled to see that in the last year, over 2.4 million people have seen our messages or engaged in one way or another. I want it to go to many more million. You can help us with that. Thank you so much. I love you. I'll be back with Tuesday's session, the Tuesday that changed the world, Jesus Olivet Sermon. Bye-bye.